Did you know that the most expensive meal ever purchased might not have been a lavish banquet for royalty, or a gold-dusted delicacy in a Michelin-starred restaurant? It was, in fact, something far more ordinary. It was 2 large pizzas, 2 simple, unassuming pizzas from a Papa John's in Jacksonville, Florida. This meal didn't involve rare truffles or vintage champagne, but its cost, when viewed through the lens of history, would eventually dwarf the gross domestic product of some small nations. It was a transaction that began with a simple craving for a familiar comfort food. It ended up becoming a foundational legend in the world of digital finance, a story told and retold with a mixture of awe and disbelief. This story serves as a fascinating entry point into the strange, often counterintuitive world of cryptocurrency. It is a tale of a moment when the digital and the physical collided in a truly tangible way for the very first time. Before this event, the concept of a digital currency was purely theoretical for most, a niche interest for a small group of computer scientists and cryptographers. It existed only as lines of code on a screen, a string of data passed between enthusiasts. This single purchase, however, changed everything. It proved that this new form of money, this Bitcoin, could actually be used to acquire something real, something you could hold in your hands, something you could taste. The purchase was not made by a Wall Street tycoon or a Silicon Valley venture capitalist. It was orchestrated by a programmer, a regular guy who was simply tinkering with a new technology that fascinated him. He saw a potential that few others did, but even he could not have possibly foreseen the astronomical implications of his dinner order. The event is now commemorated annually by a global community. They call it Bitcoin Pizza Day, a celebration of the moment when a digital idea became a real-world utility. It's a testament to how the most profound historical shifts often begin not with a grand declaration, but with a simple, everyday action. On that day, a small step was taken for a man's appetite, but a giant leap was made for a new kind of money. The numbers involved are staggering, almost comical in their disparity when viewed from today's perspective. This is the story of 2 pizzas that, in hindsight, became the most valuable pies ever baked. The year was 2010. The world was a different place. The first iPad had just been released. Instagram was a brand new app, and a mysterious digital currency called Bitcoin, created just a year earlier by the pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, was little more than a whisper in the deepest corners of the internet. It was a plaything for cryptographers, programmers, hobbyists. And one of the earliest experimenters was a man named Laszlo Hanyecz, a programmer living and working in the sun-drenched city of Jacksonville, Florida. He was an early adopter, one of the few who saw the beauty in Bitcoin's elegant code. Laszlo wasn't a financier trying to get rich. He was a builder, a tinkerer. He was fascinated by the mechanics of this new decentralized system. He was the first person to create code that allowed for Bitcoin mining using a computer's more powerful graphics cards, or GPUs, a development that dramatically increased the network's processing power and security. He would leave his computers running, solving complex mathematical problems to validate transactions, and in return, earn new Bitcoins. He had accumulated a small digital hoard of this nascent currency, thousands of them, but they were just numbers on his screen. He wanted to change that. Laszlo believed that for Bitcoin to succeed, it needed to be more than just a clever piece of software. It had to break through the digital barrier and become a medium of exchange. It needed a use case. Someone had to be the first to bridge the gap between the virtual Bitcoins he was mining and the physical world of goods and services. He thought about what he could buy. What was a simple, universally understood item that could be easily delivered? The answer came to him, as it does to so many hungry people on a quiet evening: pizza. It was the perfect test case. So, on May 18, 2010, Laszlo Hanyecz decided he would try to do something that had never been done before. He resolved to use his digitally mined tokens to satisfy a very real, very physical hunger. He wasn't thinking about making history. He was a programmer with a novel idea and a simple craving. He wanted to see if his internet money could buy him dinner. To execute his plan, Laszlo turned to the only place where such an offer might be understood: the Bitcoin Talk Forum. This was the digital town square for the small but growing community of Bitcoin enthusiasts. Technical discussions, philosophical debates about the future of money, a general hub for anyone interested in Satoshi Nakamoto's creation. Here, among fellow coders and cypherpunks, Laszlo Hanyecz crafted a post that would soon become iconic. His message was straightforward and devoid of any pretense. A simple direct request to the community, under the subject line, "Pizza for Bitcoins." Published at 7:17 p.m., he laid out the terms with clarity. "I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. Like maybe 2 large ones so I have some left over for the next day." He was specific about his preferences. Onions, peppers, sausage, mushrooms, pepperoni. He didn't want any weird fish topping. "The goal is to get food delivered in exchange for Bitcoins," he explained. "Make the pizzas himself or order them on his behalf from a local delivery place." The offer was substantial, 10,000 Bitcoins. He was offering a massive chunk of his mined digital currency for dinner. To Laszlo, those coins were generated with spare processing power. They felt abundant. Their monetary value was theoretical. He treated it as an experiment, a proof of concept. He wanted to prove Bitcoin could be real peer-to-peer money. His post was a public call to action. For a few days, the offer hung in the forum air. Initial responses mixed curiosity and logistics. 10,000. That's quite a bit. You could sell those on an exchange for $41, one user wrote. The exchange rate was nascent and illiquid, a faint market value forming. Others were intrigued but too far away to deliver pizza in Florida. For 4 long days it seemed Laszlo's hunger might go unsated. His offer risked fading into the archives of an obscure internet forum. Continuation of previous line. Just as it seemed the experiment might fizzle out, a response appeared on the Bitcoin Talk forum that changed the course of the conversation. Another user, a 19-year-old student from California, Jeremy Sturdivant, known as Jerkos on the forum, saw Laszlo's post. Unlike others who merely commented, Jeremy saw an opportunity to participate in something novel. He was intrigued by the challenge and the sheer absurdity of the request. He lived thousands of miles away from Laszlo in Florida, but in the interconnected world of the internet, that distance wasn't an insurmountable barrier. He decided to take Laszlo up on his offer. The communication was conducted publicly on the forum and through private messages. The plan was simple. Jeremy would act as the middleman. He would accept Laszlo's 10,000 Bitcoins. Then, using his own money, US dollars, he would call a Papa John's pizza parlor near Laszlo's home in Jacksonville, Florida. He would order 2 large pizzas and have them delivered to Laszlo's address. It was a transaction built on trust. Laszlo had to trust Jeremy would follow through after receiving the Bitcoins, and Jeremy had to trust he'd be compensated for the real money he was about to spend. The arrangement illustrated Bitcoin's early development. It wasn't integrated into commercial systems. You couldn't just go to a website and select Pay with Bitcoin at checkout. That infrastructure was years away. Instead, the transaction required a human bridge, a person willing to convert the digital asset into fiat currency to interact with the traditional economy. Jeremy Sturdivant became that bridge. He saw 10,000 BTC not as a long-term investment, but as a fair exchange for about $25, netting roughly $15 profit. With the terms agreed, the stage was set. Laszlo prepared to send the Bitcoins. Jeremy prepared to call a pizza place across the country. The forum watched with keen interest. This was no longer theoretical. It was happening. The moment of truth had arrived. On May 22, 2010, 4 days after his post, the deal was ready to be finalized. Laszlo Hanyecz sat at his computer in Florida. Jeremy Sturdivant was online in California. The first step was the transfer of the digital currency. With a few clicks, Laszlo initiated a transaction from his Bitcoin wallet. He sent the agreed-upon sum, exactly 10,000 BTC, to Jeremy's Bitcoin address. 10,000 BTC left one digital wallet and arrived in another, with the blockchain confirming the transaction. In 2010, this process was relatively fast and incredibly cheap. The digital coins, once only data on Laszlo's machine, were winging their way across the internet. From Laszlo's perspective, this was the culmination of his experiment. The Bitcoin network processed the transaction, just as Satoshi intended. It was verified by other miners around the world, and added to the immutable public ledger known as the blockchain. Block number 57,043 to be precise now contained the permanent record. The digital handshake was complete. The 10,000 bitcoins were no longer his. Now, all he could do was wait and trust that his counterpart would uphold his end of the bargain. Across the country, Jeremy saw the 10,000 BTC appear in his wallet. For him, it was a novel experience, receiving a payment in this new form of internet money. But he had a job to do. He picked up his phone and made a call. He dialed the number for a Papa John's in the Jacksonville, Florida area. He placed an order for 2 large pizzas, just as Laszlo had requested, one with standard toppings, nothing too exotic. He paid for the order over the phone with his credit card. The total cost, including delivery and a tip, came to about $25. Now, the final leg of the journey began. A pizza delivery driver in Florida loaded the 2 warm pizza boxes into his car. He had an address for a man named Laszlo Hanyecz. To him, it was just another routine delivery, one of dozens that night. He had no idea he was the final, critical link in the first ever documented real-world purchase made with Bitcoin. An hour or so after the deal was struck, there was a knock on Laszlo Hanyecz's door. He opened it to find a delivery driver from Papa John's holding 2 large pizza boxes. The aroma of baked dough, melted cheese, warm tomato sauce filled the air. It was a success. The experiment had worked. His abstract digital tokens, generated by the humming processors of his computer, had been transformed into a hot, delicious meal delivered to his doorstep. He had done it. He had bought something in the physical world with Bitcoin. For Laszlo, this was a moment of triumph, a satisfying conclusion to his little project. He brought the pizzas inside, likely with his family. He opened the boxes to reveal 2 perfectly good standard American pizzas. They were not made of gold, nor garnished with diamonds. They were just pizza. But in that moment, they represented so much more. The physical embodiment of a successful transaction, a bridge between 2 worlds. Laszlo quickly took a few photos. He captured the pizzas on a table and his young child's hand reaching for a slice. He uploaded the photos to Bitcoin Talk. His follow-up post read, "I just want to report that I successfully traded 10,000 Bitcoins for pizza." He posted the pictures as proof. The forum thread lit up with congratulations. The community celebrated with him. They'd witnessed a small but significant moment of history. Bitcoin as a medium of exchange was now a proven reality. You could use it to buy things. Those 2 Papa John's pizzas became legendary artifacts, visual evidence of Bitcoin leaving the digital realm. For Laszlo, it was a satisfying meal. He had leftovers for the next day. In the days and weeks that followed, he repeated the offer, spending thousands more Bitcoins on pizza. He wasn't thinking about future financial value. He was focused on nurturing the nascent ecosystem. He used his Bitcoins as intended, as currency, and on that day it tasted like pepperoni and cheese. At the time of the transaction in May 2010, the value of Bitcoin was nebulous and difficult to pin down. It wasn't traded on major exchanges like it is today. Its price was determined in small, over-the-counter trades between enthusiasts on forums and early makeshift exchange sites. During the discussion on the Bitcoin Talk forum, one user explicitly pointed out the approximate monetary value of Laszlo's offer. They noted that 10,000 BTC could be sold on an exchange for approximately $41. This calculation was based on a price of less than half a cent per Bitcoin, about $0.0041 per coin. So, for his 2 large pizzas, Laszlo Hanyecz effectively paid the equivalent of $41. From this perspective, it was a slightly expensive pizza order, but not outrageously so. Jeremy Sturdivant, the student who facilitated the trade, spent about $25 of his own money on the pizzas. This meant he made a profit of roughly $16 in equivalent value for his efforts. At the time, this seemed like a perfectly reasonable, even clever bit of arbitrage. He had traded his time and access to the traditional banking system for a small reward, paid in a novelty internet currency. Let's pause and consider that valuation. $41. It's the price of a family meal at a casual restaurant, a couple of movie tickets, a new video game. It was a trivial amount of money in the grand scheme of things. For Laszlo, the 10,000 Bitcoins he spent were even less valuable. He hadn't bought them with dollars. He had mined them with his computer. They were a byproduct of his hobby. Spending them on pizza felt like a feature, not a bug. It was a way to give his digital tokens a tangible purpose, to prove they were more than just a score in a game. The $41 valuation was simply an external benchmark, a curiosity. This context is crucial to understanding the mindset of everyone involved. There was no sense of a monumental financial event taking place. No one was calculating future values or agonizing over a missed investment opportunity. Laszlo was a developer testing a network. Jeremy was a student making a few bucks. The community was a group of hobbyists cheering on a successful experiment. The cost was $41, and the reward was a hot meal and a great story to tell on a forum. The real value of the transaction, as measured by history, was yet to be revealed. The world had no idea what that 10,000 BTC would one day represent. The story of the Bitcoin pizza purchase might have ended there, as a quirky footnote in internet history. But Bitcoin did not fade into obscurity. Its value, which was less than a penny at the time of the transaction, began to climb. Slowly at first, then with breathtaking speed. By 2011, a single Bitcoin was worth about $1. Laszlo's pizza dinner was now worth $10,000. In 2013, Bitcoin surged past $1,000 per coin. The two pizzas were retroactively valued at $10 million. The story spilled out of crypto forums into mainstream headlines. But the climb was far from over. In 2017, Bitcoin flirted with $20,000 per coin. Those 10,000 BTC were worth $200 million. Later, at an all-time high near $70,000, the pizzas were worth about $700 million. Today, September 21st, 2025. Bitcoin is hovering around $250,000. That makes the 10,000 BTC roughly $2.5 billion. A simple dinner order had become worth more than the GDP of several countries. Laszlo Hanyecz has been asked about this countless times. Does he regret spending what became a colossal fortune? His answer is consistent and philosophical. He doesn't regret it. He says Bitcoin needed to be spent then, treated as a currency. He viewed himself as a pioneer bootstrapping a new financial ecosystem. Without transactions like his, Bitcoin might never have been seen as usable. He is proud of his role. Jeremy Sturdivant, the student who received the 10,000 BTC, did not hold on to them. Like many, he saw them as a short-term asset and sold when they were worth a few $100s. He used the money to help pay for a trip. He also expresses no regrets. The story isn't about regret. It's about pioneering spirit and proving a radical idea could work. Why does this story continue to fascinate us more than a decade later? Why do we celebrate Bitcoin Pizza Day every May 22nd? It is because this simple transaction represents a pivotal moment in the history of money. It was the Kitty Hawk moment for cryptocurrency. Before this, Bitcoin was just a concept, a white paper, a piece of software. It was an abstract idea about decentralized, trustless value transfer. Laszlo's purchase of 2 pizzas was the moment that idea took flight, however clumsily, into the real world. It proved in the most straightforward and relatable way possible that Bitcoin could function as a medium of exchange. This moment also serves as a powerful symbol of the paradigm shift that cryptocurrency represents. For centuries, money has been issued and controlled by central authorities, governments, banks. The Bitcoin pizza transaction was a declaration of independence from that system. He paid $41 for 2 pizzas, and in exchange, he gave the world of cryptocurrency its foundational myth, a story of how a simple hunger for pizza helped launch a global financial revolution.